2023 is one of those years for film that feels weird for me. It was the most hit or miss year for films that I was genuinely looking forward to. Comic book movies hit a whole new low with only 2 bangers out of like 8. Other big movies felt very throwaway and trash. And even some smaller movies I was looking forward to like The Killer and Maestro were just fine to me. I hope with the low box office returns of big blockbusters as well as the strikes, it means that Hollywood will finally learn to not waste time on mediocre stories and rehash garbage, and let talented writers and directors share their visions and tell their tales. To be honest, I didn't know if I had enough to talk about with these movies for this video. But thankfully, the winter came around and allowed me to catch up with some truly stellar movies. And while before I may have had about like 12 movies I wanted to talk about, now I have 30 on here. So let's get to them. How to Blow Up a Pipeline is about how to blow up a pipeline. So this is a feature-length YouTube tutorial video. This is easily one of the most tense movies I've seen all year, with a message that just invigorates you to get up out of your couch and start doing the right thing. Also, Kevin from Fred is in this. What more do you want? Extraction 2 was a massive surprise to me, as I never thought the first one was anything special, but this one just rocked me with how fun it was. That 21-minute long take is nothing to scoff at and is truly a work of art on its own, but I really had fun with all of the movie. It's nothing incredible in the story and character department, it's simply just getting a family out of the country, but I vibed with it enough to know that it was a great action film. Dream Scenario is a funny, distressing tale of Nicolas Cage uncontrollably entering people's dreams, and it all becoming a nightmare scenario for this man in real life. I think the movie really shines in its second half, where things start to turn dire for this man, and that's what had me the most engaged. But I think the film has a nice balance in its tone, mostly due to Nick Cage's amazing performance that may just be my favorite from him. Killers of the Flower Moon was one of the most haunting movies I've watched all year. Leonardo DiCaprio gives one of his best and most subtle performances of his career, and yet Lily Gladstone came out of nowhere to outshine everyone in this film. She radiated the screen in every scene she's in, and I hope this means we get to see more from her in the future. I just wish the movie gave her more focus, as after a while I was kind of missing the relationship built between her and Leo, and that Brendan Fraser scene was just ridiculous, but I think this movie was one of the most harrowing I've seen in a while. Poor Things was an extremely weird and entertaining movie with maybe Emma Stone's best performance and one of her most complex characters she's ever played. I love the progression of her character and how unapologetic this movie can be with the journey she goes on. It's a movie about self-discovery and formation of identity, while also being a funny remake of both Frankenstein and Anastasia. I think the film picks up more in the second half, and some characters felt like they overstayed their welcome, but I still came out loving this feature. Asteroid City was Wes Anderson's latest venture into absurdity, this time taking a look at aliens and the way people react to these events. It's also a movie that looks at how we interpret art and how sometimes art simply has no meaning. It's just something someone wanted to do, maybe to prove to themselves that it is possible. I feel like this is one of those movies that has hit me more with its message as time has gone on, and while I don't think it's Anderson's best, I think it's one that will connect with me more as I keep watching it. The Boy and the Heron was a film that had me pondering for weeks after watching it. It's a movie that looks at death in a way that makes me both scared and hopeful at the same time. We all think about what will happen when we die, but rarely do we ever think about how inevitable it is and that we will never escape it. And less of us think about when to expect it. So to have a movie so perfectly succinct my feelings on death to a narrative it tells, it's amazing. There are a few other anime movies I loved more, and I don't think the protagonist has as much personality as other Ghibli protagonists, but I think this is one I've connected with more than most. Women Talking was a movie about women talking. And also Paddington's here. It's a very intense and powerful movie about leadership and unity. It's also a very ugly looking movie. Seriously, why so much gray?
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
Wonka was super charming and lively. I never thought a movie covering the backstory of one of the most iconic movie and book characters ever could work this well, but get a goated director and a great lead and man, you get a delightful treat. It did take some time to really get going, and some aspects in the third act felt a bit too underwhelming, but I won't lie, I was smiling throughout the entire movie. Suzume was the return of animation director Makoto Shinkai, the director of Your Name, one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And while I don't think it's as good as that masterpiece, it was still a beautiful movie about handling grief and cherishing memories. Also a movie about a girl falling for a chair. What more to love? May December was listed as a comedy by many people for some reason. I mean, there was a hot dog joke that was funny. This was honestly more horrifying of a story than most horror movies I've watched in the past 5 years. Looking at a real life couple that met at 2 very different ages, and thinking about it more makes me lose sleep every night. It's a deep look at not only how horrifying the story is, but how we tend to glorify these stories by presenting them under the banner of entertainment. The Riverdale guy gives a truly heartbreaking performance, as well as Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman probably giving their best performances.
Oh, rowan tree, oh, rowan tree.
Living was one of the most underrated movies of the year, with one of the best performances I've seen all year with Bill Nighy as this charming, humble, and lovely gentleman. It makes you feel like there's more you can do with your life despite all the hardship thrown at you. It also made me cry whenever Rowan Tree was played in the background or when a character sings it. Talk to Me was easily the best horror movie of the year, made by 2 talented YouTubers about using possession as a gateway drug. It's a very inspirational movie for me, and it has one of the best endings I've ever seen for a horror movie. It did take some time to get to that fantastic ending, and some characters received endings that I thought they didn't deserve considering the mess they caused, but it's still an incredibly fun horror movie. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed was a very informative documentary about the effects of the opioid crisis and the greedy family that caused it, while also being a great exploration of the life of the woman behind this revolution. I think some stretches of the film drag a bit, but it leaves you feeling hopeful in the people around you and shows how coming together in unity could bring some good to the world. Yes, you could say it was a very timely movie for this year too. Nimona was one of the biggest surprises of the year for me and one of the best animated movies I've seen all year. This was a beautiful tale of 2 people from 2 different backgrounds coming together to open up a secret conspiracy from the people above and to win back favor amongst the kingdom. The animation was great, the cast was fantastic, and the story had some really amazing twists and characters. The first act was a bit rough to get through, but I found the rest of the film to be delightful. Enemy of a Fall has one of the most engaging scripts of the year about a woman being suspected of killing her husband based on the way he died and the court proceedings that followed it. It also has one of the best performances I've seen in so long with Sandra Hüller. It's between her and Greta Lee for my pick for the Oscar, at least I hope they get nominated. I'm literally writing this weeks before the nominations come out. The direction was striking, making you feel like you're pacing back and forth in the courtroom trying to figure out if she's guilty or not, and the dialogue is some of the best of the year. I do think that the writing for the kid was a bit too unrealistic at points. This kid knows everything about court proceedings and has all their morals checked out at age 11. Meanwhile, my ass was probably still sticking crayons up my nose at that age. But it's still one of the most engaging movies of the year and one y'all should definitely check out. The Kaguya-sama movie was a great love letter to fans of this series, and while not incredibly necessary, as you can probably tell where this movie's going by the opening credits, it still provided so much for these characters, and I still think it was a great end to the series. But I'm still asking for more, please.
Crying never did nobody no good, no how.
The Holdovers is the warmest hug a movie has given me all year. Seeing three people from three different generations share their griefs together was incredibly powerful, with all three of these actors giving some of the most believable performances of the year. I do think it took a bit of time for me to get fully attached to the proceedings, but I would be lying if I said this wasn't one of the most uplifting movies I've seen all year, and one of the best Christmas movies I've seen in my life. The Iron Claw was one of the last movies I wanted to check out from this year, and I think it's one of the most tragic movies I've seen all year. We see his family wrestlers rise and fall in one of the most haunting ways a movie like this has ever done it. And yet, despite all of the heartbreak, the ending leaves you feeling hopeful that even though we all go through hardships and hard times, we will still get past them and make sure the people we do have in our lives will remember us. Also, I'm very down for that Zac Efron hype train. Blackberry is one of the best biopics I've seen, maybe ever? Taking a fun and fresh look at the rise and fall of the BlackBerry phone and the people behind it. Everyone in the cast shine, including one of my favorite supporting performances I've seen all year with Glenn Howerton. He commands the screen with his presence, playing an antagonist that you honestly want to root for despite the knowledge we all have of this company. Matt Johnson created an extremely entertaining film, and I can't wait to see what else he does going forward. Sanctuary remains the most overlooked and underrated movie I've watched all year. There was barely any promotion for this movie, and I've only seen a few people recommend it, but this movie was fantastic. Taking a look at two smart and interesting people trying to outwit each other while simultaneously falling more and more for one another, this movie has two of the best performances of the year that should be recognized for award consideration, some of the most lively direction and cinematography I've seen from anything this year, and a story that takes many twists and turns, landing on a fantastic ending. Maybe some scenes dragged a bit too long, but that's hardly an issue for me. Love this movie, and you should give it your support as well. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 has some of the most impressive action scenes I've ever seen, mixed with a story that remains engaging, stakes that feel timely, and a cast of characters that keep me feeling invested throughout, including an amazing new member with Haley Atwell that has a really strong arc throughout this film. It did take like 15 minutes into the film until it really got going, but once it does, fuck, it was fun. Past Lives was a movie that was on my watch list for almost the whole year, and I regret ever leaving it on there for as long as I did because it was beautiful. The movie looks at two childhood sweethearts coming back together many years later, where one has lived in Korea all their life and the other in New York. The cast gives some of the most realistic performances I've seen in years, the pacing was very purposeful, and the ending had me a wrecking mess. Godzilla Minus One was everything a Godzilla movie needed. It not only had amazing monster mayhem scenes, but characters I wanted to see be okay by the end. We get invested in a man's struggle to move past his survivor's guilt and try to raise a pseudo-family as much as we do seeing Godzilla blow away an entire city with his atomic breath. No longer will I take average for any kaiju movie moving forward, as this film set a gold standard for how to do it right. Especially knowing the bullshit that's going to be coming out in April.
Fuck. 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 Fucking fuck. Fuck. Fucking bugger. 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 Buggity. 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 Fuck. Fuck. Willy. Shit and fuck and tits.
John Wick Chapter 4 was the most fun action movie I've watched in a while. Each individual action scene would be the best action scene in any other movie, and yet all of it equates to a truly phenomenal action movie experience and makes this film the best in the whole series. I'll take spin-offs for this universe, but please don't make another one. Oppenheimer. Enough said. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is one of two great comic book movies that came out this year, and one of my top 3 favorite MCU movies. Within a decade, we've seen a huge collective change within this group and the journey they've all gone on. Seeing it all conclude with this movie shows how much love and dedication went into these characters by James Gunn, and it also shows that Marvel can still provide good stories. They just need to get their heads out of their corporate asses. The first Slam Dunk was one of those movies I knew nothing about going into the theater, not even any promotional material, and then it turned out to be my favorite sport movie of all time. Every character had something rich in their backstories, and how it played into their arcs allowed for some of the highest emotional investment a movie had for me all year. The animation is incredible, and the tension felt throughout the game was some of the most palpable I felt all year.
I'm just kidding. Anywhere else I'd be a 10.
Barbie is a masterpiece. Nothing else needs to be said. It's one of the 2 movies this year I would give a 10 out of 10 to, despite giving it a 9 on my Nolan video. Best production design of the year, one of my favorite scripts of the year, has some of my favorite moments of the year, and Ryan Gosling. Again, need I say more? This was a movie I watched the most in theaters. It was the subject of one of my favorite videos I've ever made. It gave me more inspiration for the character of Spider-Man and what he means to me. It's the greatest looking animated movie I've ever seen, and it's now become one of my top 15 movies ever. I know that it looks weird that for the past 2 years, my favorite movie of each year were comic book movies, but despite how bad they can be, and this year was any indication they really can be, when we get good ones, I still think they could stand tall with some of the year's best. And to me, Across the Spider-Verse gave me everything I wanted from films this year, and I cannot wait to see how this journey ends. But please treat the animators better this time. Okay, bye!